and we'll go ahead and get started. So today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about blues licks and how to try and think about connecting them together. So not just learning, 7 different blues licks or something like that, but really trying to figure out what's the best way of being able to understand how you move from one lick to another, or how do you expand ideas with these licks. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So again, just let me know. It takes a second for this feed to get through to everybody. Let me know if you can see me and hear me okay, and then we'll go ahead and get started. And remember, there's a link. Hey, Bob. Hey, everybody. There's a link that that you'll be able to click on to check out Creative Blues Soloing if you're interested in checking out the guitar course. I'm sure that my guys from GuitarZoom will be clicking it up here too for you to see. But hey, how you doing? Thank you. Hey, Peter. Hey, Jeremy. Hey, everybody. Thank you. So let's go ahead and get started. If you've got your guitar with you, that's great. If you don't, that's okay. You can always watch this later. If you're part of the GuitarZoom Facebook group, the Live Blues Workshop group, of course, it'll be in the group that you can watch anytime you want. Hey, everybody, thank you so much. You're awesome. So let's go ahead and get started. What we're going to be talking about today are blues licks. And I am going to show you some blues licks, but what I also want to show you is how to think about getting creative with your blues licks, expanding the ideas of your blues licks, not just learning 5 blues licks, okay? Because I always found that when I was learning how to play and when I was teaching, personally teaching one-on-one lessons, trying to teach somebody 17 different blues licks and then having them go play number 15 or play number 14, it's hard to remember that. If you can figure out an organic way of being able to move around your fretboard, it makes way more sense, and it's something that you can utilize. So here's what I want to do today. Let's say, and again, if you're beyond pentatonic, you can use anything that you want. If you're doing diatonic or anything like that, you can do whatever you like, okay? But what I'm going to be doing is combining some of the things that we've talked about in our prior sessions and expand on that today. Now, I do want to make one correction, though. I've been telling everybody that I was going live Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. It's not Sunday. It's going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday today, and then next week I'm going to go live again on Monday and Wednesday. So Monday I've got a really great section for you, so I hope you join me. And then on Wednesday we're going to be doing a Q&A. So same time, same bat channel, same everything, right? So all you have to do is join me, not Sunday. We're taking the weekend off. It'll be Monday at the same time, and then Wednesday at the same time again. Hey, everybody, thank you. We've got people from, looks like from Norway and Ohio and the UK. This is great. Just all kinds of people. Thank you so much. Croatia, you're back. This is awesome. Colorado. So again, I don't want to take way too much of your time, and of course, I have a lot of stuff I have to get to too. So we're celebrating the release of Creative Blues Soloing. There's going to be a link somewhere. I can see it right in the chat there. And take a look at it. See if it's a guitar course that might be beneficial to you. So let's go ahead and get started. So if I was using A minor pentatonic, and we're going to expand the pentatonic on Monday. That's going to be our goal. Today, some of the things I do will expand, but on Monday, I'm going to explain to you why and how to think about it, okay? So today, we're just going to be trying to kind of learn how to explore. So let's say we're in A minor pentatonic. We're right there. And of course, I'm going to be doing a lot of like bending and things like that because it's crucial to the sound of blues. So if you're just working on your bends, or you've just started working on bends, or you're having a hard time with it, don't worry, okay? There's no rush in this stuff, but I'm going to start building some licks from here. So the first lick that we're going to look at today, I'm going to go to the 7th fret of the 3rd string. Remember we were talking about bends in the last one? I'm going to bend that up a whole step. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach onto the 5th fret of the 2nd string and the 5th fret of the 1st string. So what's actually happening is when I bend this 7, it's becoming the sound of a 9, right? Right there, which is the note E. Well, when I go to the 2nd string, the 5th fret right there, I'm playing the note E. So those two notes are the same note. Now, when I bend that note up, okay, you'll notice what I'm trying to do is keep the other strings quiet. So what I'm doing as I bend this up is I'm touching the thicker strings with this part of my hand. Not really the karate chop where I would palm mute. I kind of touch more in this area here. I touch those strings so they don't make noise. And then the strings underneath I'm kind of touching with maybe my first finger to try and keep them quiet. Now that's a much bigger topic that we could spend an entire hour talking about, but be aware of that, is you want to control these strings. I always tell people one of the most important things of getting good at guitar playing is learning that the stuff that's between the lines is equally, if not more important than the stuff that's written on the lines. So when you play, learning to control your guitar, especially if you have distortion on, so strings don't ring out and you're getting all this unwanted sound, you've got to learn how to control that stuff. So as I'm doing this bend, that's what I'm doing, is I'm controlling all these other strings. So you'll notice as I do that, I'm pressing down on both these fives at the same time, and I'm getting two notes at the same time. We could call it a double stop, or there's all kinds of things we could call it, but now that brings us old school blues, right? Chuck Berry sort of thing. But that's going to set us up for a lot of the other things that we're going to be doing in just a minute here. So I want to get caught up on the chat. And again, I can't read all of it, but I just want to make sure I'm good here. West Virginia, India, Wales, Idaho, California. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. This is so awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and Tamer says, Floyd Rose doesn't lower the pitch of the E string. It does. A floating tremolo will go out of tune just a little bit when you do your bends. And you've got to, so what I do when I'm using a floating tremolo is I tend to overbend just a little bit, but then I let go of the bend. By the time I get to the next note, Tamer, when I get to the second string, I've already released that bend, so I'm back in tune again, you see? I don't leave it like that. I bring it back, so I bend it, and then I'm done. Hello from Sweden, from the Catskills, Pakistan, boy, Italy. I am so glad you are all here. Thank you so much for your time. This is so awesome. From Missouri, this is great. Okay, so that's the first thing we're going to do. Now, that in itself could be a lick. You could play... Or what I could do is I could play these two fives at the same time. Now, again, I know this is elementary stuff for some of you, but please understand, there's a lot of stuff happening here, because if you think about, this is the creative aspect I want you to be thinking about. When you do that bend, and then you do that five and that five, let's just separate them all for now, okay? Think about how you could accent the rhythms or change the rhythm of that three-note grouping to do different things with it. Instead of going, which is perfectly fine, you could go, right? There's lots of different things that you could do with the rhythm of it if you took the time to think about it. And that's what I want you to do, is not just learn a lick and then move on and learn another lick, but really start thinking about what you can do and how you can manipulate what you learn to make it something that makes sense to you. Because again, when I play, I don't sit and think about, 58 different licks or something like that. I just play. And that's what our conversation is going to be about today. Okay? So I can change the rhythm, right? I can change how long or how quickly I'm holding those notes or playing those notes. So let's say now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play 7, 5, 5, but I'm going to return back to the 5 on the second string. So now I've created a 4-note grouping. So let's say I wanted to do something where I wanted a 4-note grouping. Da 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 da. I could do that. Again, it's nothing real complicating, but just think about how you could add a note to make it a group of 4 instead of a group of 3 if you needed it to be that. Okay? So when I move to the double stops, playing these 2 notes at the same time, why don't I play on the cat? You must have saw my video this morning, yes. I have a video of me with my cat on my lap, so I'm pretending like the cat is a guitar. Anyway. Okay, now the same thing can happen here when I'm playing these 5s. I could do 2 of them, which gives me a total of 3, or I could do 3 of them. Or I could do different ones. I could do a 2 and a 3 and a 2 and a 4. You see? So that's really cool because I can manipulate the idea. So it's a traditional idea, but instead of just playing it as da 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 da, I could manipulate that, or I could move back and forth. Okay, so if that makes sense, let's move on to the next level. So what I'm going to do is go back to my original idea of doing that 7, 5, 5. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over and I'm going to start using this 8. On the second string, remember we talked about our bends? I'm doing a whole step bend on the 8th fret, and I'm bending it up 2 frets, or a whole step we call it. So that is what I call a tag. I might go there at the end of whatever it is I'm doing, and I can hit that 8 and I can hold it, and it's going to sound great over that A chord. Because when I hit that 8 and bend it, guess what note I'm playing? I'm playing an A. It says, Steve Stine, what's the best scale to learn first? I would highly recommend learning the pentatonic scale because you can make music with it. I always tell people learning all your theory, and I'm not dogging theory. I went to school and studied theory, and I use theory a lot. But I knew how to play long before I ever started studying theory. I played in bands and played music and played by ear and all kinds of things. Pentatonic is really great because you can learn how to do some jamming. You can do some exploring. Use the colors of sound and not just the logistics of theory, right? And then once you get used to being able, it's like playing songs. You want to learn to play songs before you ever learn what all your theory is. You want to learn to play, whatever it is you want to learn how to play. Because you learn feel, you learn sound, you learn rhythm, you learn groove, you learn dynamics, you learn all these different things by playing music, and then go, hey, what is that, and how does that work? That's how I approach this sort of thing. Okay? So now I've got this. So I'm tagging at the end to that 8th fret, and that makes for a nice resolution. You see? So I might start off doing a... And then I know that I can tag at the end with that 8th fret bend. You see? So it doesn't just have to be a... It's a combination of all of these other things that are going on that are becoming, finally, the 8th fret bend on the second string. That's where it's resolving to. Okay? So if that makes sense, I'm going to kind of go through all kinds of things here, and then please, please, please come back and watch the video later if you're at work or you've got something else going on and you're thinking to yourself, oh, he's moving too fast. It's only because I want to give you some stuff to work on. So because you can watch the replay later and come back and use all these things, okay? I want to give you some stuff that you can use, all right? So now when I do this, and I resolve that, okay? So I could be doing... Well, this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something else. I'm going to go to the first string and I'm going to bend up to the 8th, or from the 8th fret to the 10th fret. So I'm going to go... Okay? Now that's not resolving anything, okay? But it makes for a really killer kind of screamy sounding bend. So I might be doing whatever, right? I always tell people, soloing is kind of like learning how to walk around your guitar. That's kind of part of it, is learning your scales and learning how to walk around, right? And do some creative things with that. And then you hit a spot on the guitar and you start doing something repetitive. And that repetitive thing that you're doing is your lick, okay? And then you come out of that lick somehow, and you either go to something that makes a point, like this 8th fret bend that I'm doing on the first string. It makes a point, or you continue walking again, right? So you're kind of walking around, and then you hit something and you repeat, and that's your lick. And then you continue walking, and you hit something, and then you repeat, and that's your lick. But in there, you want spots where you want dynamic spots, and that's what that 8th fret is. You see that? So I might be doing something where I go, whatever. Now, what do I do after that? And this is the crucial question that people don't realize. If I'm on that 8th fret, what do I do from there? Because it doesn't resolve. It doesn't really sound like it. So I have to think about what comes after that. And that's what I want to show you. So if I did this 8th fret bend, I could bring it back down, come down the scale. I'm just playing 8, 5, 8. And then I could bend that up again. And now I'm bringing it back around. I'm walking back, and I'm resolving it with that bend. Jimmy says, newcomers need backing tracks. There are tons of, I see you're on YouTube. There are tons of backing tracks on YouTube. So what you do is you look for a backing track that's in a key that you're working in. Think slow blues in A minor, or fast blues in B minor, or swing in A minor, or what, we've talked about swing and things like that. Make the backing track work for you. Think about what you're looking for and find a backing track that fits what you're looking for. Don't try and just always work, backwards trying to, this one's in F minor and I don't really know F. Well, find one that's in A minor, or find one that's in whatever you might be looking for. Do that, okay? So I'm walking up, I'm doing my lick. I'm going into that 8, I'm gonna walk backwards. And I'm just trying to get into that 8th fret to resolve it, the 8th fret on the 2nd string to resolve it. That's my goal, okay? So that's one thing that you can do. Now let's start thinking about this direction, okay? Now, of course, we can play the scale, right? But let's do something a little more interesting than that. Let's take and do this. I'm gonna play 5, 8, just those two, okay? And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna head over to the 7th fret of the 3rd string, which is the first note that I started on this whole thing. So I'm skipping over some notes. Now again, bending that note up might be great and I could stop there, but I might need to continue on my journey. I might need to start walking again. So what I would do is once I've done this, I would bring it back down. Remember the blues bend we talked about? I'd add that teeny little blues bend and go to the A. So that's a great way of coming down. I might do... Now here it is. You see? Now, when I bent this up, like we talked about in the last session, if you saw that, if you haven't, you can certainly go back and watch it. I could do maybe a reverse bend. Or something like that. Again, don't get too wrapped up in all the details because you'll just wind up getting really confused. Here's something really great that I used to tell all my students to do. Is take a piece of paper and write down all of the different topics that you're thinking about, like reverse bend, whatever you want to call this little lick that I did, backward lick. You could call it anything. Chuck Berry lick, half step bend, whatever it would be, whatever it is that you're working with. You write these things on a piece of paper, and when you go to start improvising, and again, when you start improvising, don't just go full on zombie mode and just, you can stop and you can restart and you can test things out. And, that's what a jam track is for, is it's not for perfection. You're not doing it on stage at this point necessarily. You're trying to train yourself on how you're going to approach this. So the nice thing about writing all these things down is you'll look at that piece of paper and maybe that's not part of your train of thought at that moment. And you go, oh, okay, yeah, that's right. I should do this. And you throw that in there. Okay. So that's what you need to do is just, if you write those things down, it'll help you to remember certain things as you're practicing. Okay, so I'm working my way up. And then maybe I do my... right there, okay? Now another thing that we talked about before, we were talking about sliding in the last session, right? I might come down this, bring it back down, and right here, do my little blues bend, or my blues slide. Remember that little half-step slide that I did last time? I love to do things that repeat like that, so right there what I'm doing is I'm going 7, 8, 7, which we talked about last time, doing my pull-off, and you don't have to pull off. You can pick it. Again, slurring, hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, things like that. You have to figure out the way that feels most comfortable to you when you play. And this goes for learning cover songs, learning anything. Sure, Jimi Hendrix might have picked it a certain way, but he's Jimi Hendrix and you're you. You have to figure out how to make things sound real the way that works best for you. So, you might hammer or pull off something when somebody else is picking it, okay? If you want to learn how to pick it, great. But don't make that your primary objective, because unless you need that particular kind of, practice, you should be developing you. You should be figuring out what works for you and how to make your playing sound authentic. because Hendrix wasn't sitting there thinking, well, how did so-and-so and I got to do it. He's playing. He's freaking Hendrix. He can do whatever he wants, right? So think about that when you play. So I'm doing that slide, 7, 8, 7, doing a pull off to 5. You could pick it. And then I go down to my 7, my root. And then I turn around and walk back 7, 5, 7. So it sounds like this. So what I'm doing is I'm crossing my 3rd finger over the 7th fret of the 4th and 3rd strings. See that? Now again, I'm not trying to give you way too much stuff. I just want you to be thinking about this, because as I move around my fretboard, what I start thinking about is different ways of walking around, like we talked about earlier. And sometimes when I'm walking around, that's when my lick will be created, is in that idea. Okay? It's not just lick 1 to lick 7 to lick 12 to lick whatever. It's moving around. Christopher says, how do we develop the creativity? You got to spend time with it. That's what I'm talking about right now, is don't just go for the easy win. Don't just go for, oh, that was the lick, let me study that. You can learn the lick, but you've got to take the lick and figure out how to use it. Okay? You got to figure out how to manipulate it. So if you're trying to learn a lick, and it requires a bend, but you haven't practiced bending, or you're not very good at your bends, you got to shut the machine down. And you got to figure out how to do those bends, right? Because all of this stuff is interactive with each other. If there's an element of it that's not working for you, okay, then you've got to figure out what to do to fix that. So always be aware of the things that are working for you, but always be aware of the things that aren't working for you as well. So if you're having a hard time doing a pull-off, you're having a hard time keeping the strings quiet, or whatever it might be, those are things that you need to try and focus on as you're learning. Not just the matter of, like I said earlier, not just the stuff that's written on the lines, so to speak, right? It's not just the lick or the scale or the whatever. It's the way you play them. Because we all play the same stuff. But why is it that we don't all sound the same? And it's not just because of gear, right? You know, you've got to learn to manipulate what you've got, and you've got to learn to make it sound authentic. Okay? So let me show you something else. Let's say we're going to do a blues lick here. So I'm going to go up into what we would call the 2nd position here. So I'm going to go up to the 10th fret of the 1st string. I'm going to put my 3rd finger there. My other 2 fingers are going to go right behind it. We talked about this in the last session. So I'm going to bend that up. Okay? So I'm bending it up. Okay? So that note right there is a D, and I'm bending it up to the note E. Okay? But that's not the lick. What I want to do next is I want to go to my middle finger on the 9th fret, and I'm going to bend that up a half step. And then I'm going to drop down to the 8th fret with my 1st finger. So I'm doing a little bit of a weird kind of chromatic thing where I'm going. So I'm playing 10, bending that up. 9, 8. And then I'm going to the 10th fret of the 2nd string, which is an A. It's a root. Right there. And you can see it sounds very bluesy. Okay? So that's a lick that I can do. Now, let me tie this together. So hopefully this makes sense to you. Remember when I was doing this? That was that early lick that I did. Instead of doing the bend, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide from the 8th fret to the 10th fret. I'm going to get the same note, but I'm not doing it as a bend. I'm sliding. Now, why would I do that? Because now I've set myself up in this position to do that. I might go to the 8th then, slide down, and now I'm back in this position to do something here. So you utilize slides, and again, we've talked about this a little bit in the last session, but you utilize slides to reposition yourself in another position to be able to do something else. You see? You see? So those are some really great ways that you can start trying to figure out how to connect ideas together. So if you learn a lick, whatever the lick is that you learn, from wherever it is you learn it, right? What you want to start doing is looking at that lick and think about, well, how can I change it into something else, either A, in the position that I'm in, or B, to allow me to shift to another position. I don't remember the guitar course that I have, but there's a guitar course that I have. Maybe Derek is on it, he remembers, but it talks about pivoting. The whole thing is about learning how to move in and out of things. So when you're playing, you never get pushed up against a wall in the position that you're in. So you can't continue soloing, right? So as you're playing, you see, you're always thinking one step ahead of where you want to go. Now, guitar soloing isn't just about moving places, although that is certainly part of it. But as I said earlier, as you're moving, you might wind up in some place and stabilize there and just stay there and start trying to make something happen there. Okay? So I might be up in this position here, doing whatever it is I want to do, and then I think, okay, well, I want to go somewhere now. Okay, well, I'm on my third finger, and I'm in this second position, so what am I going to do? Or I could have come down, or... And again, I'm not expecting you to know all this stuff that I'm doing. I'm just telling you how my brain works. That's really what creative blues soloing is all about, is trying to figure out how to think about movement. So before we end this, think about the fact that you've got your ability to walk around the fretboard. Maybe you only know one position. Maybe you know two positions. Maybe you know your whole fretboard. But your ability to be able to maneuver around that fretboard is really important, and be able to do it comfortably and creatively. Now, if you've never looked up my video, I've got a video on YouTube called Meandering. If you've never seen me talk about meandering, you should really check that out, because it's a great way to learn how to move around your fretboard. Okay? Am I in standard or half step? I'm in standard right now. Anyway, so meandering. Okay, so learning to maneuver around the fretboard. Then what you do is you start getting used to being able to isolate a particular place on your fretboard where you want to start creating repetition, which is what we call a lick or a sequence or a pattern. It's a repetitive idea that we start creating. So I might do a... Right? And what I'm doing is I'm just taking little ideas that I know, and I'm just figuring out how to repeat them. But I always have to have an escape route. I've got to have a way of coming out of that. So I can figure out somewhere else to go as I'm playing. You see? So that's what you think about. So you have licks, and the most important thing with licks today is understanding how to start with just a small idea and expand it into something else. Okay? If you took the traditional kind of Jimmy Page's sort of... Now what I'm doing is I'm up here on the 15th fret with my third finger again. I'm bending on the second string. And I'm going to the 15th fret of the first string with my pinky. Well, think about this, Ark. Ark says, can you do an example of where you get stuck and you can't escape? If I was here and I was doing this, I don't have anywhere else to go, right? Because I'm in this position. So I've got to start thinking about how I'm going to exit from this position that I'm in. One way to exit is to go back where I came from. Another way to exit that might be to slide up from my 15th fret, and then that enables me slide into another position, you see? So you're always thinking about, once you've done something, like when I did this is kind of a dead end, right? When I did that 8th fret of the first string, I'm against a wall. There's really nothing else for me to do. But I can come back and descend, or maybe I'll slide into another position and continue on with something else. But whatever it is I choose to do, it's got to make sense to me. Okay? So hopefully that helps you a little bit. So there's just some licks and some ideas of how you can put these things together. And then on Monday, when we reconvene again, what we're going to be doing is talking about really the secret sauce of what blues is, which is learning how to combine both major and minor pentatonic together in a creative way to make it sound much more like blues and not like you're just playing pentatonic. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense to all of you. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care. Stay positive, and we'll reconvene again on Monday, and I'll see you then. All right? Make sure and check out the guitar course. There's a link somewhere around here that you can check out and see if it's something you'd be interested in. And, of course, keep practicing and stay positive, and I'll talk to y'all soon.